Hey everybody, welcome from Remarkable House live tonight for another Facebook Live. Probably this will be on the Remarkable Leadership podcast as well, although we're starting a series tonight all related to the changes in our world related to the coronavirus or COVID-19 pandemic, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to think about it. Here's what we know. Our world is way different than it was just a few days ago. I don't need to count all of the ways for you. I don't need to share all of the things that have changed for me. But the world is different. And so in a time of the unknown and the fear and the constant change, crisis perhaps you would call it, all of the changes around us are leaving us unbalanced. And for many of us, we also don't have a workplace to go to anymore. Our workplace might now be our kitchen table or our spare bedroom or something like that. And that's what I want to talk about tonight. I want to talk about adjusting to the new world of work. And we could talk about that in lots of ways, but along with all of the other stresses, we've just added changing our workplace and what our work day looks like for many of us, the part of our day we spend the most time doing, the thing that we spend the most time doing. And so the first thing I want you to do is to take a breath. And the second thing I want you to do is, if you're with me live, is to share your questions with me. Put them in here on Facebook. If you're here with me live, please do that. The most important thing I want you to do right now as you think about adjusting to a new world of work is to take a breath. Recognize that if you're feeling uneasy, uncomfortable, disjointed, you're not alone, and it's not unusual, and it's okay. So that's the most important, the first thing I can tell you, and I think it's important for you to hear. I want to say, too, that while you go home or when you go home, there's several things I want you to keep in mind. And one is that your routines are all going to be different, right? They're going to be different. And you used to get up, do some stuff, and then you went off to work. Now you get up and do some stuff and you're already at work. So at first you think, man, this is awesome. I've got no commute. Life is good. But the problem is, if we don't set up some routines, we start to bleed between our work, our life and our work, both at the start of the day and at the end of the day. And so there becomes no clear defining line. And even if you had a challenge with work-life balance before, at least you had to leave for the office. And at least you had to go home. You had some defining routines that gave you a shot at some normalcy. Now, that may all be gone. Now you might be sheltering in place in some parts of the country, and you can't even go anywhere, even if you want to. So what I want you to do is to think about your start of day routines and your end of day routines. And mostly what I want you to think about is making sure that you set some lines of demarcation. Because if you don't, you run the risk of everything falling all together, and that's not going to serve you. It's not going to serve really your work, and it's not going to serve your family or those around you either. So the second thing after routines that I want you to think about, so I want you to think about your relationships. So first of all, you're already working with folks, so hopefully you have some relationships with them, but there's a lot of things that happen that are with your colleagues that happened when you went to the office. You stopped and said hello when you walked down the hall. You saw them when you were getting your coffee. There were the serendipitous moments. There were the moments of conversation that now won't happen automatically when you're not in the same place. So I strongly encourage you to get more intentional about your relationships with your team members. Make sure you're reaching out and just chatting and catching up with people. Because here's what happens. What happens is we become far more transactional in our interactions. You know, think about this. You call someone on the phone. You say, hey, I know you're busy. You don't have a lot of time. I just need a second. And that becomes what we do with everybody all the time, and we stay in transaction mode, and we never get back to anything close to interaction mode like we used to do when we were in the office. So what we can do as individual team members is work on that relationship piece. Realize that we'll have to be more intentional about it and recognize that when you do that, will make a difference. Now, if you're the leader, then you gotta work on this. I can tell you that as a leader of a remote team for many years, that you need to, or I'll just tell you what I do. What I do is that every day I have a goal of how many of my team members I'm going to interact with in some way. And if I get to the end of the day and I haven't met that number, then I haven't been successful. So I have that number in my head. I keep track against it every day. I work to be ahead of that number every day. Your number is going to be different based on how many are on your team. Now, if your team is brand new to this remote, or like some of our clients where people could work from home occasionally, but now everybody's home, and you're the leader of that team, you're going to need to up that number. Make sure over the next 2 or 3 weeks that you're talking or checking in with everybody on your team every day, if at all possible. You want to find out how they're doing, not only with the work, but with everything else that's going on in our world. Remember that all of the changes that you may be feeling, they're feeling too. So getting reconnected and building the relationship piece can be super important. Make sure you're doing that with the folks at home too, that you got those clear boundaries about when you're working and when you're not. And by setting a clear expectation with others around that, that will help you a lot. I want to just talk about one more thing tonight. I look at the time. I'm kind of up to the time that I wanted to get at. And I want to just say this, that I think that, well, I know, is that what happens is when we're working remotely, especially when we're starting, is our work, we tend to get tunnel vision. We tend to get very focused on what's going on in our world, in our work. We get very insular. And you may get a lot accomplished for your stuff, but I need you to be thinking bigger. I want you to lift your eyes and lift your gaze to think about the team and not just your work, because you have work that impacts others, and there are ways that you may be able to help others, and I want you to think about doing those things too. So I really hope that you'll think about increasing your intention and increasing your view so that you're thinking about the work a little bigger than just what is on your task list at this very moment. Listen, there's a lot more I could have said there. Let me tell you what I'm going to do. Tonight is the first night that I'm going to come on Facebook Live, and I'm committing to doing this every day, where we're going to talk about issues related to all of this crisis and communication related to this crisis and the change associated with this crisis and working from home because of this crisis. And so I really hope that if you're not watching this live, but you're watching it later, you'll put your questions for me in the comments, because I'm going to be using those questions to be creating these in the future. And I really hope that you'll choose to join me tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern or Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern. We're going to go on this strategy every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for the foreseeable future, 7 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to be live, and 4 p.m. Eastern on Fridays. So back to that personal balance. I'm not going to do it at 7 o'clock on Friday night for you or for me. So Monday through Thursday, Monday to Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern. Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to do these. If you're watching or listening to this, put your questions in, and I'll be answering them in the future. And set your calendar. Come back and join me another day and ask your questions of me live. So I'll have a theme, but I'll answer the questions that you have at that time. Hope you'll join me. Hope you'll invite others to join me if they're dealing with the same challenges of dealing with work in a new world, dealing with working from a new place, dealing with how do I stay focused on work given everything else that's going on around us. I hope you'll take advantage of these. I've got other exciting things to share with you in the coming days. I hope you'll take advantage of these things, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks, everybody.